no, amigas, like we have to be good at this. I know this is scary. I know it's so scary, but trust me, the fear of asking for your worth is letting that fear stop you is not worth like the life that you want to build and the finances that you want to grow.
Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Ambitious Women of Color podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Lynn Rojas. Today, we're talking about getting paid what you deserve without burning out. My guest is Evie Prete, Latina salary negotiation coach and host of the Págame Podcast. Her clients had collectively negotiated over $810,000 in salary increase by learning to negotiate from self-worth. We're talking about why more money doesn't have to mean more work, how self-worth changes the way you negotiate, and how to prepare for layoffs before they happen. If you ever felt guilty about asking for more or thought you had to earn the right to negotiate, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Hello, Evie, and welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm so excited for this. Like, I've been really excited to have this conversation with you. And, to get started, let's start with what is one thing you refuse to sacrifice for your career?
Oh, that's so good. My mental peace.
Yeah. Can you dive a little deeper in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think so. Let's see, where do I start? I started off my career got a mechanical engineering degree from UC Davis. So started off as a designer, moved into manufacturing, and then naturally had a progression into program management and project management. And along with that, I think as I increased my responsibility, there was almost this expectation, especially when I stepped into the startup environment.
Mm-hmm.
There was almost this like expectation or maybe unspoken like rule of like, the burnout badge or like the idea
Mm-hmm.
of like, no, you want to be first in, last out kind of idea. And I think that was something that maybe in the beginning I was like, yeah, I guess this is just what we have to do. And with time, I realized like that was the most like backwards kind of like thinking strategy when I looked back on it. And so I really learned to prioritize my mental health because I did experience burnout. And I think during that time, if you're someone who's gone through burnout, it's tough. You see yourself
Mm-hmm.
in this position, you're almost like unrecognizable to yourself, right? Like you are not, the person that you usually are, this ray of sunshine, or you're not as productive, or you're just feeling really unmotivated. And to anyone who is going through burnout, it's tough, and practicing compassion in itself can be really challenging. And I think that experience really taught me that like nothing is worth my mental peace. And when I actually took some time away from this particular job to take care of my mental health. And when I returned, I was like the boundaries queen. I was like, I taught people when
Yes.
they can find me, when I was available. I taught them that I was not available after 5 p.m. So if you wanted your questions, if you wanted your help or their help, to put me on their calendar before then. And so I would say that is kind of the context to that piece of advice.
I love that. And I can completely like relate to that. That is similar to like what happened to me. And I feel like for burnout, it can manifest in different ways for people. But for me, it was a similar experience where I had developed depression and I've been living with anxiety since college, but then it really got so bad during that time. So I can totally relate to that. And often that badge of honor of work, like overworking and burning out. Oh, I'm so busy. I don't have time for things. Like I'm busier than everyone else. And it's like a competition and like who can stay at the office longer. Like I've definitely had been in that environment where it's like 10 o'clock and people are still at the office. And it's like you don't want to be the one to leave because then they're going to be like, oh, she's, slacker. Like she doesn't want to stay till 10. So it's really great, to realize that your mental health is a priority. And when you put yourself first, and that's exactly like what I work with like my clients and my own philosophy is when you put yourself first, everything else starts falling into place. You can grow in your career and thrive in your life intentionally and sustainably because you are showing up as a better version of you.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I also like experience very similar like symptoms from burnout. And I love this idea of putting yourself first really sets up like you to win, your team to win, your company to
Hmm.
win. Like it may seem like counterintuitive, but actually like when you treat yourself as the most important asset, you actually can show up for other people much better. And I noticed that when I returned after my mental health break, I did show up as a better leader. I showed up as a better team member, as a better program manager. I feel like I was able to communicate much easier. And it's so funny, but I was able to also like move quicker and be more productive, even though it was, had my routine and had my getting in and then getting out and not burning out and not staying 60 hours anymore every week. Right. I started to actually honor
Mhm.
my time and take care of myself. And I showed up better professionally.
Yeah, because when you do that, you are level headed, your mental health is taken care of. So you're making decisions from that place of confidence and knowing your worth, and taking care of you also allows you to be able to give from an overflow, not from I am running on empty, so I'm giving whatever I can. So I love that. So let's dive into your story. Like, I know that you help women of color land five-figure salary increase through negotiation, and you have a podcast, Págame, which I love. Like, I was like, I need to dress today like Págame Energy, right?
I love
So
that.
how did you get into this work? Like, take us to that journey.
Love this question. And I also love the energy because I also did the same. I was like, I'm really gonna harness my like rich girl vibes, my old money vibes, you know? So
Yes.
yeah, so I love this. I love that we both came to slay. And such a good question. Okay, so where do I start? My name is Evie. I am from San Diego, California. So I grew up in a low income, neighborhood. My mom is a immigrant from Mexico, and I got really lucky. Actually, I feel so blessed that I happened to be in the right. Like, even though we grew up pretty poor in a poor neighborhood, I had access to a good school. Like, I happened to live in an area that had good school districts, and I had the right mentors. I still remember them to this day. Like, my high school counselor was Miss Lavario, Latina from LA. And then my avid teacher, Mrs. Gross Close, were probably the two most impactful people that I had in my early career. And they're the only reason I even thought about engineering or thought about the STEM. And I happen to be good at math and science. And so, fast forward, I'm the first in my family to go to college, earn an engineering degree, graduate, and then get into the workforce, which I'm the first person who's navigating like, what the heck is a 401k? Even like with just like navigating corporate America. And one of those things that I learned pretty painfully, pretty early was negotiations. So when I was offered my first job, I took it like, oh my God, you want to pay me? This is so great. Like,
You're like,
I
thank you, I'll take anything.
exactly. I was just so grateful for the opportunity that, like, for me, the salary that was presented was like more than my both of my parents combined made. And like for me, that was a big deal. And I just didn't know that I could even negotiate. I didn't even know like I had like to do salary market research to understand, is what I'm being offered equitable? Like, I didn't
Hmm.
even know. And like, if you're first in your family to navigate these spaces or land these kind of jobs, you're not going to have parents who probably know that they can. If anything, they're going to be in the opposite side of like, just take it because it's a great opportunity and work yourself up. It's like the common, like, just work really hard and you'll get rewarded, which I had to actually unlearn in my career. And so,
Hmm.
about like 2 years in to my job, one of my colleagues, we had a similar background, similar role, similar education, and he made a comment that was like, "Oh, that costs like X percent of my salary," and I'm a numbers girl, so like I did the math, and I was like, "Wait, that means you're making a lot, and, like, a lot more than me," and I was like I had a moment of, like the moment I realized I was underpaid, and
Hmm.
that brought up so many emotions, like, emotions of, like, unworthiness, emotions of, like, not enoughness, emotions of rage and anger because I was like, "How did I let this happen?" And I almost put the blame on me, and I think this is a big shift in, like this is why I do the work I do because like, we can't count on companies to just, like, give us what we deserve. Like, we need to be our
Hmm.
own advocates, and so that's what kicked off my, like, own personal journey in negotiating, and, like, to be very frank with you, my first negotiation, I cried. Like, I straight up cried. I didn't even get much of a salary increase. It was kind of, like, actually a slap in the face, and that was a moment of, like, I deserve better, and I'm gonna go somewhere else, and even making that decision, and finding a new job, and then also negotiating that job, I think I landed a $35,000 increase just in leaving the
Oh,
job where I
wow.
felt like, where they didn't pay me what I think they should have, and then moving on to somewhere else that actually valued my work. So that was like the very beginning, like baby Evie, I think I was like 23, 24 maybe, and I continued to negotiate throughout my career. So now I've negotiated over like $210,000 in just my career alone. And I've helped my clients negotiate close to $1 million. So I think this work is like, for me, so profound because it did change my financial journey and my financial
Yeah.
trajectory. And being the first in my family to create like generational wealth, it's been a huge tool that I've been able to like repeatedly use. So I think I started a blog where I started talking about mental health and finance.
Mhm.
And then on that blog is when I realized that a lot of my friends and mujeres and women of color like were afraid about talking about money, especially when it came to salary negotiations. So I went in hard and I was like, no, no, amigas, like we have to be good at this. I know this is scary. I know it's so scary. But trust me, like the fear of asking for your worth is not like letting that fear stop you is not worth like the life that you want to build, and the finances that you want to like grow. So I think that's kind of like where I started my journey and like why I do what I do today.
I love that. You actually learned this early on. I don't think that I started negotiating my salary until maybe like 10 years ago, or maybe a little bit more than that. But like it wasn't until I was starting in like public health career that I even knew about you can ask for more. Like you think whatever they give you, it's like, oh, okay, the HR people know that based on my education and my experience of what they can pay me. When in fact, they're always going to give you the lower amount. And one thing I learned is that, I'm like, the white man, he always negotiates. So I'm like, why am I not going to do that? And like you said, the first experience may be scary and you may cry, but you didn't die. And what it actually led to you making more money. So it's like you realize they are not really valuing my worth. So I'm gonna go somewhere else that does. And you would never gotten that 35K increase had you not done that. So it definitely like shows that it is worth it. It may be scary and you may not get what you want, but then that helps you make that decision of whether or not this is a place that you want to stay or this is like a place that is valuing your worth. So I want to talk a little bit about the Págame energy and like what it means to you and like where did it come from?
My God, girl, you're like, with all these questions, they're like so fire. They're just so good. Oh, you're making me think. Okay. So the Págame energy, I feel like really came from a combination of like the salary negotiations and the work I do, but also personally, like I feel like I had to heal through so many money wounds and old money narratives to even like let myself embrace wanting more money. And I think I had to deal with like this idea of like money is the root of all evil. And like, asking for more money makes me look greedy. And I think if you're someone moving through or has this mentality when you're moving through asking for more money, it's really a sign or symptom that there are limiting money beliefs.
Hmm.
Even the idea of like money is hard to make, like those are all things that like I used to believe. And I feel like now I've really moved through a lot of healing and understanding where those wounds come from and understanding them with like compassion because my upbringing being low income and like, seeing like eviction notices and like realizing that we're late on bills and my dad having to be in like the lobby of the money tree because he didn't have money, and had to borrow money. Like all of
Hmm.
these like very young memories, like they really did like impact like the way that I saw money, which was like a scarcity mindset. And so it took some time for me to move through that and be like, no, I'm so deserving of money. And just because I didn't come from money doesn't mean that I don't know how to manage it or I don't know how to make it and that we are all so deserving. It's not like I'm special or anything like that. Like we're all incredibly special and we all have gifts. And those gifts you should be like, rewarded for. Like you have a way to monetize and that's your skill set. And so I really had to move through that to like step into the woman who like believes she's powerful, believes that she can be a high earner and like make more in her career and make more in her business. And so that's kind of where this Pagama energy comes from, like getting really comfortable with money and getting really comfortable with like advocating for myself, articulating my value, because sometimes we have a harder time talking about how we add value at companies. And that's like the whole 101 and strategy with your manager and like how you ask for a raise. And so that's kind of where this like Pagame energy came from.
I love that you touched on the money mindset and even that money trauma because I had a similar upbringing as you. And like for me, it was like my mom was a single parent. So it's like I had three sisters and I saw that a lot, like the not having enough. Oh, we don't have money to buy all those things. And I was the kind of kid that I liked nice things and I still do, right? So it's just like, I mean, I think since day one, I knew that I needed to be rich, but it's like I like nice things. So what I did is like, I actually started working at 13 because I'm like, okay, like I know my mom can buy me all the nice, cute, like, things that I want, so I get a job. So, I mean, it was like she bought me nice things, but I wanted more. And
I
it's just
love
like,
that.
you also realize if there are things that I want in life, I have to go out and get them. And also, I'm the eldest daughter, first gen, navigating life that way. But that is one thing that I, even in my 30s, am still working on is that money mentality and like those stories because even that like idea of I want to build wealth. I want to be rich. And if you come from a background, like you said, you were taught that, like, oh, the rich people, they must have done something bad to get rich. Maybe they took advantage of the good people to get rich. And then if you're like, I want to be rich, but then you have in your subconscious, like these stories, that is going to contradict. And then you are going to struggle financially because what you think deep inside, even if like, you say those affirmations out loud, if you don't feel it in your core, you're going to make the decisions that lead you to losing money, to debt, versus like if you believe in your core, like, I am worthy of building wealth. Building wealth allows me to help my family. Building wealth allows me to shift and change generational patterns and build something new and set the tone for the rest of my generation. So it's like, so powerful what working on your money mindset and what you believe about money and your self-worth combined because it's like a combination because when you don't believe that you are worthy to earn more then you're not going to ask for it. So when you're asking for it then you're like, well, am I worthy of the extra 10K or that extra 20K? And that's why some of the women might be hesitant to ask because they don't in their heart believe that. And it's because they haven't been able to see what is the value that they bring and adding like a number to that. Like for me, I won't even consider a job that doesn't pay me my minimum of what I am willing to accept, right? It's like I am not available for anything less than that. But it
I love
took like
that.
time to be confident and know that I am worthy of that and more. So like I
Absolutely.
love that you share that and that helped, shape your journey and like your trajectory, but also like led you to help other women to be able to do that as well.
I love that. This idea of like, I'm not even available. I'm not even going to get off the couch for if you can't meet my minimum number. And that's like a whole vibe. And like, I think because maybe we both have experiences where we like grew up feeling what it felt to
Mhm.
live in scarcity and we can like feel it in our bodies. Like like when you go back to those core memories, we all remember what it felt like in our body. But it's just like when did we have opportunities to embody richness? And so like that is like exactly what you're talking about like the idea of like I like nice things and I deserve nice things and so I'm going to go and make that happen. That is the energy of like a woman who like knows her value and knows that what she's asking for is not too much.
So, talking more about the mindset shifts that are needed, like so many of my clients, they think that in order for me to make more money, that means I have to work more or I have to start like doing the next job. So if I want to be, a manager, I need to start doing my job and the manager's job to show that I am committed and worthy of like that next role and that next salary. What is like your approach and how do you help women to be able to shift from that mindset of more work means more money or I need to like hustle to prove that I'm worthy of that?
Love that you brought this up because my clients also struggle with this too. And I want to first say that is like the biggest myth. And actually, you're teaching your employer the opposite. You're teaching your employer that your work is not valuable. And so you're not asking for compensation when you are adding scope to your job. So that is definitely a belief. And that's like the thing that, like, this is why we have women who are doing things above their role, but not getting paid for what they're doing. In this case, this is where like many people think I need to do more, I need to get more certifications, a PMP, like I need to start doing the next role. But really, what you need to do is reevaluate what you're already doing and how you're already adding value. And this is going to help you like not only recognize that you are already contributing to like profit of the organization, but it also allows you to use that as like objective evidence when you go to your manager, when you're up for a promotion, and getting used to teaching employers that if they're going to ask you to do more work, that they're going to pay for it. The analogy I like to make here, and I'm letting go again, so I'm back to dating and things like that in the dating world. And so one thing is like very similar to when I go on dates with men, I expect them to pay for dinner. And I don't have to necessarily like say it from the beginning, but the way that I like to kind of like make this expectation known is like if they go to like, split the cost, I will literally be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought this was a date. If you want to be friends, it's totally fine." And I start to pull out my card, almost as a way to be like letting them know I'm expecting that if you're going to go on a date with me, you're paying. And in a way, the way that we can kind of do this in our careers is like when they ask us to do more work, we say, "I'm so excited that you have, identified my worth and that you see me for like leadership potential. I'd love to understand what you have for compensation for this role." Almost like kind of like making it like a no-brainer conversation,
Mhm.
just like politely let them know that you're expecting to be compensated. And this is where the conversation of like that conversation can start. And I would highly push back to like not take on more effort if it's not going to be recognized with a monetary value or some kind of like tangible value add to you, whether that's more work from home days, whether that's like more PTO, whether that's like paying for your career development, or even like a direct path with milestones and dates and timelines for promotion. So this is kind of like setting that expectation. So I hope that's helpful, because I know this is something
Yes.
and like might think, and I want to be like, no, we're not doing that anymore. This is what we're gonna do instead.
I love that you use the analogy of dating because even like when you're going in for an interview, when you are negotiating, if you are not confident and not sure and don't believe that you are worthy of it, you're going to accept what is given to you. And you are teaching them how you value yourself. You're teaching them how what you are accepting or not. So when they give you more work or they have you doing the interim role of someone else without the pay, then they're like, we can hand things to her and she will take it and not ask for more. And what you said about like the dating, I think about that as well. Cause even like, when you are in a relationship and then your significant other is expecting more than I joke with my boyfriend. I was like, I'm sorry, you are in the girlfriend package. If you would like to have the wife package, I need a
Love
ring on
that.
my finger and I need to be married to you.
I love that. Talk about more women that like know their worth. I love it.
And speaking of like self worth, how does self worth actually change how you approach a negotiation? What do you teach your client? It is all about self worth to be able to successfully negotiate. You can go with the script and you can go already, but if you are not embodying that identity, if you don't believe in your bones that you are worthy and you are that woman, then it's going to affect how you negotiate. So, how does self work really help to be able to negotiate and be able to get with your worth?
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And this is why I say, like, you can ask ChatGPT to, like, help you with a negotiation. But, like, if you don't feel it in your bones, if you don't actually believe you're worthy of it, like, that energy shows up in negotiations. And it looks like taking the first offer. It looks like when you feel silence, you feel uncomfortable, and then you just like say yes. It looks like when they say no or have pushback that you think that means something about like what you offer or your self worth, right? So, what's really important to step into the embodiment of like being worthy is first to like detach your external things from defining your value. So, what do I mean by that? I mean, like, hearing no, getting rejection emails for job interviews. When a recruiter, like when the salary is not within the range you're looking for, it really is up to you. Oh, and the biggest one is like not tying your self-worth to your salary number. Like, because
Mhm.
if you do associate, like if these are external things that validate your worthiness, then you're leaving it up to other systems, other people, other things to define your worthiness. And your self-worth starts with you. Like, you're the only person who can, like, really define your worthiness, not your partner, not your friends, not your job, not your employer. And so it really begins with, how do you create this sense of security within yourself? And as someone who grew up like low income, I used to tie money to security. And I know, like, for me, like, it took a lot of work, but I'm finally in a really beautiful place where, like, I trust myself, like, truly trust myself, and I trust my income making abilities. I trust that I can keep myself safe. I trust that I can, regulate my emotions and my nervous system. And all of these things are really important to creating safety. And so the first thing when it comes to believing that you're worthy of things is, like, first to, like, create safety and to recognize that, like, you have so much to offer. And a lot of the times is like we say that you have so much to offer, and then some people think about that and they're like, I don't know what to offer, like, I don't know what I have. And it's
Yeah.
really about not giving away your power and redefining how you add value, and this helps you walk taller in a room. So, like, if you're a maybe you don't hold the title project manager, but you're managing budgets, you're managing timelines, you're managing stakeholders, like, owning that. Like, you can step into the embodiment of being a leader without having the
Mhm.
title. And this is, like, very similar to, like, you can step into the woman who, like, knows her worth, even if you're still working on believing it, And it, like you said earlier, it starts with, like, maybe simple things like, what are they called? Affirmations.
Mhm.
Or, like, for me, what has really helped me, like, affirmations was like the beginning, the baby stepping stone of, like, beginning to speak nicely to myself. And I think a big tool that has really helped me step into this embodied place of worthiness is, like, visualization and, like, already starting to pretend to be in that energy. And, like, this is why both of us showed up in, like, rich girl, old money vibes, because we're stepping into the embodiment of old money, rich money. Like, we're stepping into that before we have it. And that is, like, I think a big key. Like, if you're going to be going for looking for a new job, like, what I will do, like, it's a little hack that I like to do is, like, I like to actually write out the offer letter to myself, like, before I even get it. Like, with the salary that they're gonna offer that I really want, with all
Yeah.
the benefits, like, I pretend like it's actually coming, and I really step into that because there's something in your brain that, like, starts to actually see that number and not be so afraid of it, but it takes time.
Yeah, your brain like normalizes it and then it's like, "Hey, that is something achievable. It's not crazy." And even if it is, seriously, being delusional and all I'm all about scripting and visualizing. And actually visualizing has been scientifically proven that because our brain doesn't know the difference between what we're imagining and what we're visualizing and that it didn't already happen. Like it thinks that if you're visualizing this happening, it thinks it happened. So it's going to lead you to opportunities because it's like that number already happened. It's inevitable, right? Or that situation already happened. So it leads you to make decisions where you are acting as if you already heard. I love that. Yeah. That's exactly like a good moment. And then the scripting, right? Like if people don't know what scripting is like when you're instead of a journal diary of this is what happened today, you are writing it as if this happened already. So it's as if you are writing a journal entry, but instead of actually saying what happened, you are putting down into words what you want to happen. And that again trains your brain to think that this already happened. Actually, let's dive a little bit into like your practices. I love the affirmations and the scripting because for me, affirmations, when I started doing them, because I didn't believe them, it just felt like, how is this going to like help me? But then I realized that even if you don't believe it, the repetition it starts helping you to start getting comfortable with that. So I'm, a wealthy, healthy, powerful Latina or something, right? Like if I were to tell myself that, the first time you ever say that, your brain might be like, no, you're not. So it's like other things that you need to do in order for you to like actually believe, but it is that practice of that positive self-talk. And I've even gone as far as like recording myself and then I listen to that and then replay it because if my brain is listening to me say it, it believes it more than, if I'm listening to other people's affirmations and saying them. So those are some things that I've worked on, or maybe like bridge affirmations. I am in the process of believing that I'm a millionaire, or that I'm going to make $1 million, or like something like that, where it's helps your brain to like be like, okay, you're in the process, so I can believe it when you say it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like some of these things might seem unhinged, but I'm going to share them anyways. So, there's a lot of things that are proven by science, right? So, like
Yeah.
regulating the nervous system. I'm a big, like, breath work is like a core of a lot of my teaching and how what I embody for myself and what I teach my clients. So, breath work, visualization. I am super into the thermal cycling, so like the sauna and cold plunge. What else? I make sure I prioritize like movement because movement helps with like getting better, having more endorphins and serotonin. And that
Mhm.
helps you like build your confidence, helps you feel better. When you feel better, you act better. One thing I do too is like I am just like always been pretty chill. I feel like I'm usually like I'm very athletic. So I'm usually in like sweatpants and a hoodie when it's cozy, especially right now when it's cold outside. And not that that's bad or anything, but
Mhm.
like I realize that when I go and do activities or when I show up even to do work or even show up for the podcast, like I make it a very intentional effort of like, who am I embodying today? And how can I do that with my makeup? How can I do that with my hair? How can I do that with the shoes I put on and the clothes that I adorn my body with? And I do this going into negotiations, even if it's going to be on a phone call, even if it's gonna be an email, I show up like so if I really was a woman who valued myself, how would I show up,
Mhm.
you know? And that can look different to like everybody, so it's important to be like what that like resonates with you.
I was just gonna say that lipstick you're wearing, like,
Thank you.
already I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, girl."
Yes, yes, and I think, like, sometimes I think I used to believe that, like and this is again goes back to worthiness, is that, like, I would be like, "Why am I gonna put on makeup? It's just, like it's I'm just gonna be around the house, and it's expensive." And this is this idea of, like, "Girl, do you think you're not worth a $40 NARS lipstick?" Like,
Mhm.
no, like, you know? And so, like, how do I show up and prove that to myself, right? And I think another thing that I like to do is, I like to, like, write like letters to myself. Like you said, letters to the version of me that already has the offer, that already has the clients, that already has like the guest speakers. Like it truly step into that embodiment before like I have it. And I feel like the more it seems silly, but the more you do this, I feel like the more you actually start to see, like when you look at your past um letters or when you look at your past like vision boards, you start to see like, oh wow, I put that on my vision board 4 years ago and I did it. And then slowly it kind of like starts to build that muscle of like what I say I'm gonna do, I do. Like what I say I'm going to work on, I accomplish. And even that is like a form of like building like self-confidence in yourself. And that way, like, yeah, you go for your first negotiation. Maybe you don't get exactly what you want, but you negotiated, you asked, and you did get something. It's like that's a huge win. Like that's the
Mhm.
beginning of your journey. And I think honoring all the in between. I think the last thing that I do that I constantly feel like I love embodying and I remind my clients is imagine yourself that you are if you're going through a layoff or a hard time or something really challenging, imagine yourself in a chick flick where she's going through like the main challenge, like that challenge right before she gets everything. Like I want you to actually play in that energy instead of being like, man, everything always goes wrong for me or I never get what I want. Like let yourself play in the like no, I'm in the character development part of my chick flick right now. So, like, yes, I look messy. Yes, I'm not getting everything I want, but it's coming and I'm going to be glowing up on the other side.
I I I love the idea of, like, treating yourself like you are that main character, and, like, seeing like, just because I'm going through this hard time right now, like, that's actually what is going to help me grow, and help me, like you said, like, at the end of the chick flick where she gets all the things that she wants. So this is just the part that I need to go through, the tip of the mountain, and then or wait, is that how it works? And then everything else is gonna be, like, exactly what is meant for it to be for me. And I know you touched on, like, layoffs, and I know you recently shared that you got laid off, but I, like, really love the approach that you took, and I would love for you, if you're comfortable sharing, like, your experience with layoffs and how you actually prepare for it in advance and why you were able to, like, move forward afterwards with like grace and self-love and really like feeling confident about the future?
I love this question. So I think the first thing I'll say is that I personally like really love travel. And I think I never allowed myself to actually take time off in the past. And like, and when I say time off, I mean like a break from my career.
Mhm.
The first time I took a break from my career was actually because like I lost my dad. And that was like something that like first oldest, daughter handled it, handled the finances, handled planning all the GoFundMe and like scheduling the church stuff because like my mother was distraught, obviously. And so like I just kind of stepped in and handled it. And I think when I stepped in and handled it, like I didn't give myself space to move through that emotionally. And it wasn't until like months later that I was like, I actually need like a pause on life. And I
Mhm.
took 2 months off to like backpack in Southeast Asia. And like that, even that experience taught me like the value of taking a break. And for me personally, the value of like travel. So I knew that like in coming back to my career and like getting jobs and starting to like, build my career, I knew I wanted to take another like sabbatical. And so I planned it out in my finances. So I was like, okay, I don't know when I'm going to take this career gap, but I want to save some money. So I put money away like every paycheck, just a reoccurring like $50
Mhm.
until it obviously built into this like giant fund. And I never stopped contributing to it because I was like, I don't know how long and I don't know when. And so then August of this year, I did get laid off from my company. And that emergency fund that I automated years ago, like that was there for me. And so like that allowed me to like take my recent like 2 month of like eat, pray, love backpacking to South America. However, when it comes to layoffs, I feel like I've gone through two. The first one was like not so, I would say I was very early in my career.
Mhm.
I'd just been hired. And then like within 3 months or like 4 months, like they're like, oh, just kidding, we're cutting your department. So that one didn't feel as
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
crazy. This one, it was at a startup. So it was like I was dedicating so much time and like really, like just showing up like a lot. And so for this particular job, when I experienced the layoff, at first I felt like, like when maybe like you're dating someone and you're like, I don't think this is working out. And so I'm gonna let them know. And then they beat you to the punch and they break up with you. That's what
Oh,
it felt like to me.
okay. Yeah.
I knew it was like maybe not an aligned role anymore. And so when I first got the layoff news, I was kind of like shocked because I was like, I wanted to leave this, not
Like, how
you.
dare you?
Me. How could you? And I think it's natural to also, it's like such a shock to your system. Like when you see that everyone maybe has a different experience with layoffs, but like when on this particular one, it was like a random email that came in for like a last minute meeting with HR and my manager. So I like knew I was going to get laid off at that point. And even though it was like sudden, I had the initial shock of like, oh my God, this is happening. And then I got off the call and I remember that call very well. And like, honestly, I was so thankful for like the opportunity that in general. So like I made sure to like thank the HR manager or the business partner. I made sure to thank my manager and, just leave with grace. Cause truly like I was like, you know what? Like this is good while it lasted. Like, thank you so much. I learned so much from this. And I even said like I would really appreciate that whenever I'm ready for my next step, if I can use you as a referral, if you can write me a letter of reference, like always making sure that you're
Mhm.
nurturing your network. And honestly, I do feel like my manager did show up for me in a lot of ways, especially when I was going through such a hard time with like my mental health. Like I will say like he like stood up for me when I actually asked what I needed, which is a hard skill for many of us.
Good. Yeah.
So I will say that like I kind of like once the next day or when I got off the call, I was like, okay, what now? And for me personally, I knew I needed a break. So like I went to travel. And one of the reasons why I was feeling really like powerful and really like I'm not worried is because I also made sure to like optimize my LinkedIn. So like even while I was traveling and I was like
Mhm.
in Mexico, I went to Peru, Bolivia, Colombia, I was still getting DMs from recruiters for like really great like top 500 companies. And that was because I had already created the system and the optimization so that way I can be visible online. And I also always update my resume because, again, I never know what's going to
Mhm.
happen. And it's also easier when you document like on a monthly
Yeah.
basis, like, oh, I did this project, did that project. So my resume is already like ready to go. So I knew that like I didn't have to worry about jobs when I was traveling. I didn't have to worry about anything. I think the combination of like nurturing my network,
Mhm.
making sure that my LinkedIn's optimized, knowing that I already quantified the value I bring in my resume. All of these things made me feel like I'm super employable. I know the market's having a tough time, but like I'm not the average candidate because I got a optimized LinkedIn. I got a good resume that's going to get through applicant tracking systems. So I feel like that gave me, like I said, the safety in my finances, in my career, in my network to know that whatever step that I want to do next, it's going to be there for me. But that took being intentional. And I think a lot of people maybe are having a more reactive response to the
Mhm.
idea of layoffs because they haven't done that preparation. And it is harder to do, not harder, it's more challenging to do that once you're laid off because you might
Mhm.
be in your nervous system might be freaking out. And so you're showing up from a place of survival, from a place of scarcity. And it's really hard sometimes to like update your resume in a way that sounds really abundant or in a way
Yeah.
that's super value add. And I think when we act from this place of scarcity, from this place of an unregulated nervous system, like you said, like we don't show up as our best self. And that shows through in a lot of ways in your interviews, in the way you respond to recruiters. And even just like, am I even worth this, salary band that's being presented to me? So I think all of that work that I did previously really helped me like move through that layoff pretty effortlessly.
I love that you share that because, like, you set yourself up for success. It's not like you're like, "Oh, I'm going to get laid off one day. Let me do this." But that is the reality of, no job is really guaranteed. I mean, even the jobs that are safe, like government jobs that are supposedly guaranteed from layoffs, they're still laying people off. So you taking, the time to prepare in advance doesn't mean that you're like, I'm waiting for it. But whether it's a layoff or anything else where you can't work for a period of time, like it protects you. And then it also helps you feel like you create that safety for yourself so that if anything happens, if you decide I want to leave this job, you can. And that's so important, I think, because we tie so much to like letting others have control of our futures. And even if you get laid off, you're like, oh, they took something from me. But it's like you only if you view it that way, because the way I see it is like you said, you got laid off and it wasn't aligned. And that's exactly what happened with me. And I also got laid out twice, the first time also early in my career. And I kind of knew it would happen because it was a nonprofit and I was doing like campaign work. So they're like, by the end of the year, we might not have the budget. So we don't know if we will keep you. So I knew in advance and I prepared for it. The second one, um, I had just like been 1 year in the company. I think it was like the week after my anniversary and I wasn't expecting it. And I just got like all of a sudden that day I got it like an invite with like my boss and her boss. And I was like, okay, that's weird, but whatever, right? And it's just like something in me was like, okay, this is not going to be like, you're getting promoted or something. So, I went in with that like expectation something happened and then they give me the news that they're like, oh, we want to let you know that your position is getting eliminated. And, also went in shocked. And I was just like, why I'm not the last person that got hired? Because usually it's like, they start doing that with the last people that got hired, but they're like, oh, but you're the one that gets paid the most out of all the new hires. But similar to you, I was already feeling like that role was not in alignment with me. And I was already not feeling like I wanted to be there longer. But I was like, I'll give myself maybe another 6 months and figure out what I want next step. So when I got the layoff, I wasn't mad. I mean, I was a little butthurt, yes, because it's like you said, like I want to make that choice. I want to like be in my timing when I leave. And then I got my severance. So the first time I got laid off, I didn't get a severance. So I was just like so thankful. I was like, oh my God, at least they gave me a severance, like a month and a half worth, severance. And I was like so happy about it. And months later, I found out like through a podcast that it was like someone that worked in HR and she's like, well, I can never tell this to people when I'm, going through the process of their layoff as an HR like person, but you could actually negotiate your salary. And I was like, what? I was here, kind of like you said, going back, like my mindset already after all the work I've done, going like, oh, thank you so much for giving me a severance package, right? Like, not even thinking that I could even negotiate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I'm so glad you're bringing this up because this is one of the strategies that I knew once I got that layoff notice. I was like, oh, we are so negotiating the severance. And like, I was able to double my severance package because I was like, I know that I'm going to ask and I'm going to make sure that because the worst they can say, I mean, I am not even afraid to lose my job at this point,
Mhm.
right? Like, the
Yeah,
worst they
it's
can say
like
is
already.
no. Exactly. So I'm just like, especially for the severance package, like, it's just like one of those, like, you literally have nothing to lose at this point because you're already being let go. So just go for it. Shoot your shot.
Yeah, and you said that you negotiated yours, and did you get like double, or how was the process for you?
Yeah. So I actually doubled my severance. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I made sure, like, I think this is really important, but when you go to negotiate your severance, it's really important to like have those like receipts. And so for me, I think it was able to, show up very graceful and thankful in that like conversation and like pretty much asked to be compensated for what I contributed to the company. And I was very like, lucky to like get it. So that made me also feel like really good about like taking my 2 months off because I was like, okay, on top of my savings, like this severance package is pretty much funding, it's sponsoring my little travel. So it was
Yeah.
really nice to like, leave knowing I had that.
That's amazing. And yeah, like all the listeners, make sure that if you do ever get laid off, negotiate. So I want to move on to like rapid fire questions before we end our episode. What is the biggest mistake women make in salary negotiation?
This is a good one. Before they even like negotiate, it's usually like they're trying to choose a salary that like in the desired salary section, they're already negotiating with themselves. They're already
Mm.
negotiating their salary down. So that's like the first thing I see and the first mistake that I see when they're in that process.
Yeah, like they're already kind of lowballing themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I'll be this range. I'll be in like, if the range is, I'm gonna make something up, but like 125 to 150. They're like, oh, well, 130 sounds good, and they're not doing it from a place of like, what do I have to offer and what is it valued?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Okay. One phrase every woman should stop using when negotiating.
I would like,
So how would you change it to?
yeah, I would change that to something like based on my qualifications and my skill set, an appropriate salary is, and then the salary.
Yes, I love that. And I wanted to actually touch on something quickly that I've noticed, and especially like with coaching people, is that they go about it like saying, "Oh, because I have to pay for this and this and that, I need to make this and this and that." Yes, standard of living and where you live matters, of course. But at the end of the day, like what I always tell them is like a company doesn't care about your personal finances or your obligations. And if they're going to pay you, they're going to pay you for what you're bringing. So you need to like not talk about like, I need to be compensated, okay, because my lifestyle, that's my, standard of living. But because of what I'm bringing and because of the experience, the years, the value, the percentage I've made this company like help increase in revenues because of me, like shifting it to like, what is it that you're bringing to the company and how you're adding value, and that's what they're going to pay you for, not because, you need to pay for your kids like private school or something.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
Yeah. So when is the best time to negotiate? Like a new job offer, performance review, randomly? Like what's your take on the best time to negotiate your salary?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the best time to negotiate your salary, or the easiest time where you're gonna see less resistance, is in the beginning. So, like in a new role. But that doesn't mean that you can't, like, you have to wait for the best time. I actually had this question at one of my live webinars. And really, if you realize, like, 3 weeks of starting a new job that you undersold yourself, you can actually have that conversation and reopen negotiations. It's a different strategy, but you
Hmm.
shouldn't have to wait until your annual review or mid-cycle review or any particular milestone to bring up that conversation. If anything, leading with it is going to be important to set the expectation of like, I undersold myself. We need to fix this. And to obviously approach that in a more professional, like, making sure that you're setting up that conversation like a win-win situation.
Yes, I love that. What is one thing that listeners can walk away with today that will help them get paid what they deserve without burning out? Like, what is one message you want them to walk away with?
Oh, this is so good. I would say if you take one thing away from this podcast episode, it would be that you are already have really great like skills and assets. And instead of trying to seek out value in other things, qualifications, extra degrees, not that they're not valuable, but I want you to really get used to like quantifying your value with what you already have, because what you already have is valuable. You just need to get better at like articulating that to your manager or to companies. And I feel like if you just walked away with just that, you could easily increase like your base salary if you really, really focus on that.
I love that. And thank you so much today for like all of the wisdom, the value, sharing your story, because I know that, listeners are going to really take so much from today. You dropped so many gems. And I mean, I'm learning so much too. And I mean, I've been negotiating and I'm still learning new strategies. And today, this was amazing. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I'm so excited for this to air and everyone to listen to it. For anyone that wants to work with you, like how can they find you and how can they work with you?
Yeah. Honestly, thank you, first of all, for even being considered as a guest on your podcast. I'm truly so honored and I'm very excited to support you on your podcast launch. And like, you're going to be changing people's careers and lives. And I'm so excited for you. If people want to go ahead and follow me on Instagram, that's kind of where I post all the chismecito and all like the behind the scenes. And that's at La Mala Mujer blog. You can find me also on LinkedIn. I'm finally showing up on LinkedIn. So I'll make sure
Yes.
to drop that in the comments, but you can go ahead and find me at Evie Prete. And then if you're looking for, I do have my mastermind, which I will be hosting in 2026. Not sure when doors are going to be open, but I do work in a group coaching setting. And that is kind of like my self-worth accelerator program where I'm able to help women step into their power, learn how to articulate their value and build a self-confidence to make more money at work. And that will probably be in the show notes as well. I think if that's everything and where to find me. And then I'm always hosting like free workshops that add value, whether it's LinkedIn optimization or how to like correct your resume. So always stay tuned for a little bit of those.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
I hope you got exactly what you needed from this episode and that at least one thing clicked. One shift, one conversation, one thing you could actually try this week. And if you're listening and thinking, okay, but how do I apply this to my job, my boss, my situation? That's where I come in. I work one-on-one with ambitious women of color who want to grow in their career, get promoted, negotiate more money, or make the next move without burning themselves out or losing their peace. We get clear on the strategy, work through what's really getting in the way, and build a success that actually fits your life. If this episode resonated and you want support, you can find me at jessicalynn-wellness.com or DM me on Instagram at jessicalynn-wellness. We'll chat about how I can help you thrive in your career and in your whole life. And if you know another ambitious woman of color who needs the conversation, share this episode with her. If you loved this episode or the podcast, leaving a quick rating or review helps more women find this space, and I appreciate it more than you know. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. You don't have to choose between the career and the life. You get to have both, and we're building that together. I'll see you next week. Vámonos.